The morning sun rose over New Terra Colony like a giant orange ball in the purple sky. Marcus Williams wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked at the massive construction site in front of him. Giant metal beams reached up toward the clouds, and the sound of machines filled the air. Workers moved like busy ants across the site, building what would become the most important facility on the planet. Marcus had been working on this atmospheric processing plant for 6 months now. The building would clean the air and make it safe for thousands of people to live on New Terra. It was hard work, but Marcus loved every minute of it. He knew that what they were building would save lives. "Hey, Marcus, the new engineer is here," called out Pete Rodriguez, one of his best workers. Pete pointed toward a small transport ship that had just landed near the construction office. Marcus nodded and walked toward the ship. He had heard that someone new was coming from Earth to help with the project. The company had said this person was very smart and had lots of experience. Marcus hoped the new guy would fit in well with his team. The ship's door opened with a loud hiss. Out stepped a tall man with blonde hair and expensive clothes. He looked around the construction site like he smelled something bad. The man carried a shiny briefcase and wore boots that had never touched dirt before. "You must be the new engineer," Marcus said, walking up to the man with a friendly smile. He held out his hand. "I'm Marcus Williams, the construction foreman." Here, the man looked at Marcus's dirty work clothes and dusty hands. He did not shake Marcus's hand. Instead, he just stared at him with cold blue eyes. "I'm Jake Morrison," the man said in a voice that sounded bored. "I'm here to fix whatever mess you people have made of this project." Marcus felt his smile fade a little, but he kept trying to be friendly. "Well, we're glad to have your help, Jake. Let me show you around and introduce you to the team." Jake followed Marcus across the construction site, but he did not seem interested in meeting anyone. When Marcus introduced him to the workers, Jake barely looked at them. When they reached the area where the alien crew members were working, Jake stopped walking. "What are those things doing here?" Jake asked, pointing at the Zephyrians. The insect-like aliens were carefully installing delicate equipment with their 6 arms moving in perfect coordination. "Those are our Zephyrian partners," Marcus explained. "They're the best at handling precision work. Chief Engineer Zix9 has been working with us since the beginning." Jake made a face like he had tasted something sour. "I don't understand why we need aliens to do human work. Back on Earth, we handle our own projects." Marcus felt a cold feeling in his stomach, but he kept his voice calm. "Actually, the Zephyrians are much better at this kind of work than humans. Their extra arms and natural precision make them perfect for installing these systems." "If you say so," Jake said, but his tone made it clear he did not agree. They continued the tour, and Marcus showed Jake the plans and explained how the construction was going. Everything was on schedule, and the work was high quality. Marcus was proud of what his team had accomplished, but Jake kept finding things to complain about. He said the work was sloppy. He said the plans were wrong. He said Marcus's team did not know what they were doing. With each complaint, Marcus felt his patience wearing thin. "I can see I have a lot of work to do here," Jake said when the tour was finished. "This whole project needs to be fixed before someone gets hurt." Marcus watched Jake walk toward the office building, shaking his head. He had a bad feeling that the new engineer was going to cause problems for everyone. 3 days had passed since Jake Morrison arrived at the construction site. Each day had been worse than the last. Jake questioned every decision Marcus made and complained about everything the workers did. He acted like he was the boss, even. Though Marcus was in charge of the construction crew on this morning, Marcus was working with his team to install a critical power coupling system. The work was dangerous and required perfect timing. One mistake could damage expensive equipment or hurt someone badly. Marcus had done this kind of work many times before, and he knew exactly what needed to be done. "Careful with that connection." "Pete," Marcus called out to his worker who was high up on the scaffolding. "Make sure the power is completely off before you touch those wires." "Got it, boss," Pete called back down. Jake Morrison walked up just as Marcus was checking the safety readings on his tablet. Jake looked at the numbers and shook his head like Marcus was doing something wrong. "This is all wrong," Jake said loudly. so everyone could hear him. You're going about this completely backwards. Marcus looked up from his tablet. What do you mean? The readings are all normal. Normal? Jake laughed in a mean way. This whole setup is dangerous. You people clearly don't understand basic engineering principles. Several workers stopped what they were doing to listen. The Zephyrian crew members, who were working nearby, also turned their large compound eyes toward the conversation. Their antennae twitched with concern. Jake, I've been doing this kind of work for 15 years, Marcus said calmly. The system is working exactly as it should? 15 years of doing it wrong doesn't make you right, Jake shot back. His voice was getting louder and angrier. I've seen your type before. You think because you can swing a hammer and follow simple instructions, that makes you an engineer. Marcus felt his face getting hot, but he kept his voice steady. This isn't about hammers, Jake. This is precision electrical work that requires real skill. Jake pointed at Marcus with a dirty finger. Real skill? You're nothing but a construction grunt who got lucky? You don't understand the first thing about real engineering. People like you should stick to digging holes and carrying heavy things. The construction site went completely quiet. Even the machines seemed to stop making noise. Every worker, human and alien alike, stared at Jake in shock. No one could believe what they had just heard. Marcus felt something break inside his chest. He had heard words like this before many years ago, but he thought those days were over. He thought people had learned to judge others by their work, not by the color of their skin. You know what your problem is? Jake continued, his voice full of hate. You people always think you deserve jobs you're not qualified for. Back on Earth, we know better than to put unqualified people in charge of important work. Chief Engineer Zix-9 clicked his mandibles together, which was how Zephyrians showed anger. The other alien workers began talking to each other in worried voices. They had never seen humans treat each other this way before. That's enough, Marcus said quietly, but his voice carried across the entire construction site. No, it's not enough, Jake yelled. I'm tired of pretending that everyone is equal when they're clearly not. Some people are meant to be leaders, and others are meant to follow orders. You need to learn your place. Marcus felt every eye on the construction site watching him. His workers looked angry and ready to fight. The alien crew members looked confused and scared. They had come to New Terra to work with humans as equals and partners. Now they were seeing the ugly side of humanity that most of them had never witnessed before. Marcus took a deep breath and pulled out his communication device. He pressed a button and spoke into it quietly. Colonel Hayes, this is Marcus Williams. I need to speak with you as soon as possible. We have a serious problem. Here. That evening, Marcus sat alone in his small apartment looking at old photos on his tablet. The pictures showed him wearing a different uniform, standing next to massive spaceships and complex machines. In one photo, he stood with a group of other engineers in front of a giant defensive shield generator. In another, he was shaking hands with important military officers after receiving a medal. Marcus remembered those days clearly. 10 years ago, he had been Lieutenant Marcus Williams, one of the top engineers in the Titan Engineering Corps. When the Void Collective attacked human space, Marcus and his team had worked day and night to build the weapons and shields that saved Earth and her colonies. He looked at a photo of himself with Colonel Patricia Hayes. They were both much younger then, working together to design the energy barriers that protected Mars during the Great Battle. Patricia had been his commanding officer, but also his closest friend. After the war ended, they had gone different ways. Patricia stayed in the military and became a base commander. Marcus chose to leave and help build new worlds instead of weapons. Marcus put down the tablet and walked to his window. Outside, he could see the construction site where Jake Morrison had humiliated him in front of everyone. Marcus had not told anyone about his past because he did not want special treatment. He wanted to be judged by his work, not by his old medals and titles. Meanwhile, across the site, Jake Morrison was in his temporary office trying to redesign the atmospheric processor. He looked at the plans that Marcus's team had been following and shook his head. In Jake's opinion, Everything was wrong and needed to be fixed. Jake drew new lines on the digital blueprints, changing the positions of critical support beams. He moved electrical systems to different locations and altered the safety protocols. He was sure his changes would make the building stronger and more efficient. What Jake did not understand was that Marcus's original design took into account the unique conditions on New Terra. The planet had stronger gravity than Earth, and the ground was softer in some places. The atmospheric composition was different too, which affected how metals and electronics worked. Marcus had spent months studying these conditions and adjusting his plans accordingly. Jake ignored all of these factors. He designed the building as if it were being constructed on Earth, using Earth standards and Earth materials. His changes looked good on paper, but they would be dangerous in the real world. The next morning, Jake presented his new plans to the construction crew. Most of the human workers looked confused by the changes. They trusted Marcus and did not understand why everything suddenly needed to be different. Chief Engineer Zix9 studied the new blueprints with his large compound eyes. Zephyrian's antennae moved back and forth as he calculated the structural stresses in his head. After a few minutes, he approached one of his fellow aliens and began clicking rapidly in their native language. "This design is flawed," Zix9 said to his partner in their clicking speech. "The support structures are in the wrong places for this planet's gravity. The electrical systems are positioned where they will overheat. If we build according to these plans, the structure will fail." The other Zephyrian nodded his triangular head. "Should we tell the human engineer about these problems?" "I tried to speak with Morrison yesterday," Zix9 clicked back. "He told me that aliens should not question human engineering. He said we should just follow orders and not think." "What about Marcus Williams? He listens to our concerns." "Morrison has forbidden Williams from changing the plans. He says Williams is not qualified to make engineering decisions." The Zephyrians looked at each other with worry. They had fought alongside humans in the war against the Void Collective. They knew humans were smart and capable, but Morrison's behavior confused them. How could humans work together if they did not respect each other? Marcus watched this conversation from across the site. He could not understand the clicking language, but he could see the concern in the aliens' movements. He knew something was wrong with Jake's new plans, but Jake had made it clear that Marcus was not allowed to question his decisions. Marcus pulled out his communication device again. It was time to call Patricia. The emergency sirens began wailing at 6 in the morning. Marcus jumped out of bed and ran to his window. In the distance, he could see the orange glow of the local sun, but something was wrong. The light was too bright and it was flickering. Like a broken lamp, Marcus grabbed his communication device and turned on the colony emergency channel. The voice of Director Harrison filled his apartment with bad news. "Attention all colonists. We have detected a massive solar storm heading toward New Terra. The storm will hit us in approximately 8 hours. All non-essential personnel should report to emergency shelters immediately. Critical infrastructure teams report to your stations." Marcus's blood turned cold. A solar storm this close to completion of the atmospheric processor could be deadly. The plant was designed to protect the colony from radiation, but it was not finished yet. If the storm hit before the shields were working, thousands of people could die. He quickly dressed and ran toward the construction site. Other workers were already there, looking scared and confused. Jake Morrison stood near his office trailer, yelling into his phone. "What do you mean we need to evacuate?" Jake shouted. "This facility is perfectly safe. My designs can handle any storm." Marcus approached the group of workers who had gathered near the main building. Pete Rodriguez looked worried as he pointed at the structure above them. "Marcus, I don't think this thing is ready for a big storm," Pete said. "Some of Jake's changes don't look right to me." Marcus looked up at the building they had been constructing according to Jake's new plans. Even to his trained eye, he could see problems. The support beams were too thin for the weight they were carrying. The electrical systems were exposed to the elements. The radiation shielding was incomplete and incorrectly positioned. Chief Engineer Zix9 scuttled over on his 6 legs, his antennae twitching with alarm. Marcus Williams, we must speak privately. The Zephyrion clicked in his broken human speech. Marcus followed Zix-9 to a quiet corner of the construction site. The alien engineer's compound eyes looked directly at Marcus as he spoke. The building will not survive the storm, Zix-9 said quietly. Morrison's changes have made the structure weak. The radiation shields are in wrong positions. When the solar energy hits, the building will collapse. Are you sure? Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. My people have run calculations all night. The probability of failure is 97%. Many humans will die if they seek shelter here. Marcus felt sick to his stomach. He looked back at Jake, who was still arguing with someone on his phone. Jake truly believed his design was perfect, but he was about to get people killed. We have to fix this, Marcus said. To Zix-9, Morrison will not listen to us, the alien replied. He has forbidden any changes to his plans. Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He walked over to Jake and interrupted his phone call. Jake, we need to evacuate the building and make emergency repairs, Marcus said firmly. Jake looked at Marcus like he was crazy. Are you insane? This building is perfectly safe. I designed it myself. Your design has critical flaws, Marcus replied. The radiation shielding won't work, and the support structure can't handle the electromagnetic stress from the storm. Jake's face turned red with anger. How dare you question my work? You're just a construction worker. You don't understand advanced engineering. Actually, I understand it better than you think, Marcus said quietly. I've had enough of your attitude, Jake yelled. You're fired. Get off my construction site right now. The words echoed across the site as every worker stopped to listen. Marcus looked around at the faces of his team, both human and alien. They were counting on him to keep them safe. Marcus pulled out his communication device one more time. Colonel Hayes, this is Lieutenant Marcus Williams requesting immediate assistance. We have a code red emergency situation. The sound of military transport ships filled the air 30 minutes later. 3 large vessels landed near the construction site, kicking up clouds of dust and dirt. Soldiers in full combat gear jumped out and began setting up equipment behind. Then came a woman in a crisp military uniform with silver eagles on her shoulders. Colonel Patricia Hayes walked across the construction site like she owned the place. Her boots made sharp clicking sounds on the metal walkways. Workers stopped. Jake Morrison ran toward the colonel, straightening his dirty shirt and trying to look important. Colonel Hayes and Jake Morrison, the chief engineer on this project, I want to report that one of the workers is causing problems and refusing to follow safety protocols. Colonel Hayes looked at Jake with cold gray eyes. She did not shake his hand or smile. Instead, she walked past him like he was not even there. Where's Lieutenant Williams? She asked in a voice that could cut steel. Marcus stepped forward from the group of workers. When he saw Patricia, his face changed completely. The worry and stress disappeared, replaced by the confident look of a trained soldier. Colonel Hayes, Marcus said, standing straight and saluting. Thank you for coming so quickly. Patricia returned the salute, then surprised everyone by smiling warmly. It's good to see you again, Marcus. Though I wish it were under better circumstances. Jake. Morrison's mouth fell open. He looked back and forth between Marcus and the Colonel like he could not believe what he was seeing. "Lieutenant," Jake stammered, "what's going on here?" Colonel Hayes turned to face the entire construction crew. Her voice carried across the site so everyone could hear clearly. "Allow me to introduce Lieutenant Marcus Williams, decorated veteran of the Titan Engineering Corps. Marcus designed the defensive systems that saved Mars during the Void War. He is one of the finest engineers in human space, and as of right now, he is the new chief engineering officer for this entire project. The construction site erupted in cheers. Pete Rodriguez and the other workers clapped and shouted with joy. The Zephyrian crew members clicked their mandibles together in their version of applause. Chief Engineer Zix-9 scuttled over to Marcus and bowed his triangular head with respect. "We knew you were special," Zix-9 said to Marcus, "Your leadership and skill reminded us why we're proud to work with humans." Jake Morrison stood frozen in shock. His face was white as paper, and his hands were shaking. But but he's just a construction worker. He can't be an officer. Marcus left the military by choice after the war, Colonel Hayes explained. He wanted to build things instead of weapons, but his rank and clearance were never revoked. He has been working under an assumed identity because he prefers to be judged by his current work, not his past achievements. Marcus looked around at his team. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you about my background. I wanted to earn your respect as Marcus. The construction foreman, not Lieutenant Williams, the war hero. You earned our respect a long time ago," he called out. "We always knew you were the best boss we ever had." Colonel Hayes pulled out a tablet and showed it to the crowd. "Marcus, I'm authorized facility can protect the colony. You have complete authority over this project. Marcus nodded and immediately went to work. He gathered the alien engineers and his human crew around the construction plans. Within minutes, he was pointing out the flaws in Jake's design and explaining how to fix them. We need to move these support beams here and here, Marcus said, drawing on the digital blueprint. The radiation shields need to be repositioned to create overlapping coverage. And we need to reroute the electrical systems to prevent overload. Zix-9 and the other Zephyrians nodded enthusiastically. This